And I guess a lot of people would say, like, if you're gonna put up a business, and why not, just put it up yourself? Like, you had 100% control. And the reality is, there are pros and cons of putting together a business with a partner in mind.
Yes.
But you start with the cons. Of course, there's differences in beliefs or differences in strategies,
Differences in how
which
you
is
process things and actually the interaction, like how you process and how you interact with other people and how you decide things could be different.
could be different. Not
Mm.
unless you had everything laid out very, very strictly in terms of, this is how the partnership is going to go. I
Mhm.
do this, you do that.
Hey everyone,
Welcome to Outsourcing and More with
Penny and
Francis. We're glad you're listening because we've got a lot to talk about: business, tech, investments, business mobile apps, web platforms, and all the latest trends in the outsourcing industry and more.
we'll give you tips, insights, and strategies on how to navigate the world of entrepreneurship and the gig economy.
So if you own a business, whether it's big or small,
A brand new startup,
or you're part of the huge outsourcing community as a tech professional, a VA, or an employer,
better start subscribing because this is the podcast for you.
so let's start achieving more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outsourcing and More. Your My name is Penny, and here is.
Is Francis, and welcome again to another episode. We are so happy to have you here with us. I'm so happy to have you here, Penny. I'm always so excited to see you. We are far away, but we are making our friendship work. We're making our business work. I know, I know, I know, I
Tear.
know. But I'm doing this for the future. How have you been, love?
I'm doing okay. Now you're calling me love just because you're there in London.
Yeah, I know. How are you doing,
You just
dearie?
you've never called me that. You've
Have I
called
not? Have I
me
not?
something else, but
Yeah, I do call. I do tend to call you names, but there's a couple of things that I miss. If not the country, I miss seeing the kids. I miss seeing. Oh my
mm,
gosh, I'm gonna miss seeing so much. I'm gonna miss, like, seeing them grow up. It stresses me out a
why are
lot,
you
honestly,
not
when I think
coming
about
back?
it. Of course I am. Of course I am. It's
I'm
still gonna be a
kidding.
while, is it
I
not?
know. I know.
But yes, so welcome back to another episode for all of you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to uh to join us today. We have a very interesting topic, one that, as I found out, is also a very interesting topic to our friends in business.
Yes.
And you really just told me about this just before we started. When we started discussing the topic, where today we're talking about how we navigate business partnerships. So we want to give
Mm.
like a brief background about it, and especially the importance of, for those of you who are out there who have a keen idea to start a business, and whether you want to do this by yourself, or should you consider putting up a
Bringing in a
business.
business, yeah,
Because
business partner, yeah.
yeah, because right now, of course, if you haven't figured it out by yet, me and Penny are business partners. We 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 co we co-own Virtua Outsourcing Solutions, and we are, apparently, we're a rare sighting. We're Bigfoot because we are an example of a 50-50 relationship that is working.
Yeah, I would say it is.
I love how you pause just a little bit.
No, because it's a
It's
50
just enough
relationship.
to not.
It's just that's it. Anyway.
It's like, it's working, right? And you're
Right.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. 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 It's working.
it is.
But
Yeah.
yes, it is actually. And I was just telling Francis before we started that some of the friends that we have in the business was really curious about how we were navigating this business partnership because did experience some failed partnerships, and it's not just like, partnerships that's actually local partnerships, but also well, one of them had a partner offshore, meaning in the US, and that
Yeah.
field as well. And so they were really, and I think the reason why they were so curious is because I insert you so much into conversations, and it's especially because it's business conversations, and they're just very curious as to how I'm able to actually do that and how much I know about how you'll react about things. And then apart from
Like
that, it's
you
just
don't actually
knowing
need
that
to be here.
we've been business partners for about to be 7 years.
Isn't it
About to be
7
seven
already?
years. Yeah, it was just 6 year last year. So business
It was a
partners for
6
seven
year last
years.
year by
Yeah.
September 17.
Yes. Yes. So I think as
Yay!
around this time where this episode, yeah, goes
Yeah,
live.
it was yeah, right. It was right around that. Actually, the founding, the actual that's the actual founding of the business, but we had about maybe about a month or two of sort of putting things together
Yeah.
before it actually happened. And for those of you who are thinking, what exactly is a business partnership? uh, Especially because in the Philippines, it works very differently, and there have been major strides in changing the definition of businesses, especially corporate businesses. So there's partnership businesses where you it's not the corp ones. What was it before? When
What do you mean?
when you set up a business as a partnership, that's the only time
It's
that you could do like a two-person business.
a partnership. It's called in the
Yeah,
Philippines. It's
it's a partner,
solo
it's a partnership, but it's
proprietor,
not a
and then partner.
corporation.
No, no, it's not a
Yeah.
corporation. It's very different. Very different.
Yes. So
Mhm.
back then we chose to become a partnership because prior to the recent change in corporate laws, you can only put up a corporation if
If
you
you have
have
five,
five
five, yeah, five stakeholders,
incorporators,
yeah,
right? And
incorporators, yeah,
we absolutely didn't want to do it that way. Whereas in reality, a lot of people who would put up a business, if they wanted it to be a corporation, they'd put up what I guess in the business is known as dummy
yeah,
incorporators. You know, they choose like names of their family members, blah, blah, which I thought was very dangerous. If you know, if you're because it's only dummy incorporators in theory, but on paper, if they're on the business papers, they really have a certain measure of control in the company. When I said, we're not doing that, so
yeah.
we moved on until we were what was that? You had a term for it. I can't remember exactly. Like one
One
person
person OPC. So
OPCs, one
so
person
recent, I think
corporation.
about 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, so the government
Yes.
allowed one person corporation, but
Yeah.
really it's
A minimum
a
one.
minimum of one.
Minimum one. what what what's below
It
one?
cannot be minimum zero.
Yeah. Why do you
But
put up with me?
but anything less than five incorporators can be under that category.
Yeah, can be
Sorry.
can be considered a
A ghost.
corporation
So that's
already.
what you call a ghost corporation.
Zero incorporators.
Sorry.
Yeah. And I guess a lot of people would say, like, if you're gonna put up a business, and why not, just put it up yourself? Like, you had
Mm,
100% control. And the reality is, there are pros and cons of putting together a business with a partner in mind.
yes.
But
Or with
you
partners
start
in
with the
mind.
you start with the cons. Of course, there's differences in beliefs or differences in strategies,
Differences in how
which
you
is
process things, and
yeah,
actually the interaction, like how you process and how you interact with other people and how you decide things could be different.
could be different. Not
Mm,
unless you had everything laid out very, very strictly in terms of, this is how the partnership is going to go. I
mm-hmm.
do this, you do that, and while there's going to be a lot of things to discuss, we're not really going to focus on things like industrial partners.
No, we're not.
Brief definition: when you have an industrial partner, you have either an entity or somebody who puts together, who instead of contributing money, they contribute their
Like
skill
sweat
sets, their
equity. Yeah.
knowledge, or their intellectual patents,
Mm-hmm.
as the as my contribution to the business. If somebody invents a product and then somebody says like, oh, I'm good at marketing, then we'll mash the two together. uh a lot of times, and not to not to bel- uh not to make light of that fact, but we've
Mm-hmm.
kind of lived a life where we've seen a lot of people go for businesses. It's kind of easy to put your heads together and say, oh my god, let's put up a business. And a lot of people can get caught up with, yes, we're gonna be rich, we're gonna be do this, we're gonna have a brilliant idea, and then we're gonna make tons and tons and tons of money, so everybody's gonna be rich. What a lot of people don't realize is there's literally blood, sweat, and tears involved in the
I
process.
agree.
And yeah, and disagreements in how the businesses would should push forward. And that becomes a problem that, again, if you enter a partnership, is it premature? Is the word premature? Yeah,
Better.
prematurely, without just laying that ground foundation. And then a lot of things can come up, because, for example, if you had like a three-way split without determining, because some people would tend to do that as well, because you're friends, and then you say, oh, there's three of us, and then let's do 30 30 30 30. And then, at the time it's like, oh, he's good at this and he's good at that. But then again, when the reality of the business starts sinking in, then you realize that the other people are not, pulling their weight. Then it becomes issues, because you feel like, oh, I'm just doing all of the things. And a lot of owning businesses is also based on ego. And then when those egos start clashing, that's when, for me, that's when things start to, like, really look bad. I don't.
I think yes, there are going to be egos, but I think the number one thing that would probably be like the trigger or the start of business partnership failing would be resentment, because you can
Resentment,
fight,
yes.
right? Like you can fight, but if there's resentment afterwards, that's really like, I think for me, just where it starts. But as far as pros, because people do sometimes it is best for you to go ahead and do a business partnership or get partners, especially if you know yourself that there are things that you don't know about running a business.
It's
You
recognizing
you
the
have you
gaps.
probably have the idea, right? But you don't know much about sales, or you
Mm.
don't know much about marketing, and to have a business you need to have both.
And
And so
mind
you would
you,
want to get
oh, go,
mhm.
go, go. Sorry,
You
go.
want to get business partners to kind of complement that side of you, that okay, you do know how to build a product, but you don't
You
know
don't know how to sell.
necessarily like talking to people, so you do need
I
people who
just
are
like
in
I just like
sales.
building the product, but I don't like selling them. You'll just end up with a ton
Yeah.
of product without that's not being sold. And this, at the same time, you can be good at marketing, but if you don't have a product to market, then neither is that gonna work.
And I
One
mean,
funny
let's face
thing.
it, like running a business, there's a ton of moving parts. And so having a business partner is going to help you run that business. That's one pro of it. Sometimes it's also can make you move faster, because now it's not just you. Like the entire business is not like when you're starting, or and I'm talking when you're starting. The entire business is not just up to you, right?
Yes.
You, your partner, your partners can all be moving together, so the business can start, or at least move a little faster
Yeah. I
than
mean,
when
it
you're a
can be an
solopreneur.
opportunity to lift each other up,
Yes.
especially
Hmm.
when you're not, not everybody's going to be in the right headspace 100% of the time. Is it required? Yes. Right. Especially in high uh, powered, fast moving businesses. You just have to sort of like be on the same page at the same time, and having the right partner could also help lift you up in times when, and you're down and troubled and you need a helping hand
Yeah,
and
I
nothing.
knew it.
And you're thinking about.
I knew it. I was about to sing, but anyway, I mean, and this kind
I
of
don't think I've ever actually done that.
segues us a little bit, about what to look for when trying to find a business partner,
Yeah,
or if you're trying to find a co-founder. Like, you've been able to determine yourself that, okay, there are things that I know I don't do, or I cannot do, or I do not want to do, but I want to go ahead and start this business, and so I need the business partner to just go ahead and get
yeah,
this business off the ground. So
yeah.
what do you have to look for, or what are and then what are the red flags in terms of finding a co-founder or a business partner?
So you asked a two-part question.
Yeah,
You asked
let's
first.
start with the first. Like, what
Yeah,
are you
start with the
what should
first
look
bit.
for? Mm.
Again, as much as a lot of businesses fail, because it's funny because when you talk about, like, business coaching, blah blah, everybody talks about, oh,
Mm.
your own business and have it. I wish a lot more people talked about how for every one business that succeeds, 50 businesses actually fail, right? Because
Mm.
it's nice to sort of ground people to do that, because a lot of people will think, I'll just do this by myself, but not a lot of people, again, will realize, to our point earlier, that unless you're Superman or like super highly motivated, you're probably gonna find out that there's a lot of gaps
Mm-hmm.
within yourself that would, you know, eventually cause the business to fail if you push through with that by yourself. So the first thing to do is to look for complementary strengths. So when you say, again,
Yep.
complementary strengths, uh, they can be, they can be, just as far as yin and yang, an introvert, extrovert personality that meshes together perfectly. It could be, uh, it could be complementary skills, what do you call that? Physical and
One is like, for example, the technical person, the developer, right? For example, for SaaS
yes,
companies, one is the developer, the other is more for the sales, the business side of things, or the
yeah,
admin side of things.
yeah,
Can
and
be
it's
done.
also, the visionary and the doer,
Yes.
and it can
I
it can be
was
it can
reading
still be done.
this. I was reading this book. I think it's Traction, where he was saying one usually for co-founders. One is actually the visionary, and the other is the integrator. So when I say the integrator, like most of the time is, okay, so this is the vision. How do we use our team, or how do we utilize our team, so that we can achieve that vision? So someone has to uh, be do the execution,
Yeah,
or be at least on top of on top of the execution, on top of what needs to be executed. There you go.
yeah,
What needs to be executed.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that, and of course, respecting what each party brings to the table, because there are times when, some people say, oh, didn't really actually do any of the heavy lifting. When people start getting into their own egos, like, I'm the one who
Oh,
did the actual
yeah.
heavy lifting. I mean, there's some truth that, uh, there's some truth that sometimes there are some aspects where heavy lifting is actually required, but there's things that, if it weren't for that other person, it really wouldn't have lifted that much.
Yes.
It's having a partner who has connections, for example. So even though, you seem to be doing a lot of the actual heavy lifting, like, let's just say, like, printing, baking, whatever, right? But the other person is like, key in introducing you to different markets. You have to understand that just because one person looks like all he does is go out and party and talk to people, but he actually brings in people who are key to your business. It's recognizing that's really what they bring to the table. And, truth be told, if you can do the same thing, then you never really did needed uh
Yeah, the other person.
that
True.
other person anyway, right? I would
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
so between the two, it's mutual respect, so big, right? Not to
Yes.
mention shared values,
Yeah. And
vision.
I mean, Previously you
For
did say
okay.
about complementary skills, right? Like even complementary personalities, but there is, as you said just like few seconds ago, a shared vision and shared values. I think for both of us, we have a shared humor.
We
As I was saying before, we do have a shared humor. We
yes.
know when someone is just, pulling your leg. Sometimes, yeah, one is pulling your leg. But shared vision, it's something that you do need to talk about. Especially when okay, if we're talking about just starting a business and you're trying to find a co-founder, right?
Right.
Even before you dive in to that partnership, you have to talk about, okay, so this is the business that we want. What is our vision for it? I
Yes.
think for me and Francis, when we started, our vision was, we were the same in a sense that we were thinking that this company of ours right now was just really a side gig for us, like, right? Like
It started
no
out
one was
that way.
really no one yeah it started out that way, but at that point no one was really pushing, okay, let's go ahead and do a company, right? Like it's full blown, like we were still at the same page that, okay, this is side gig for us for it now. And then we eventually, a few years after, came together and say, okay, we have a company. It's still, whether that vision does change, that's okay as long as both of you are aligned
Are aligned,
about
and
what that vision
at
is.
like at
Yeah.
this point, are we holding on to our side gigs, or should we put 100% of our vision into,
Mm.
right? And we kind of did that because the commitment needed to be, this is what we're doing. And it's it's not, it wasn't even really much of a sacrifice if you thought about it, because we liked what we're doing, we're sort of aligned with our things, nobody took anything away from what from what we were doing. Trust, I suppose, is also a huge thing, because I mean, not that I would trust. I think I would. No, I would say, are you my ride or die? I would say yes. Maybe one of them, but a very reliable ride or die. Yeah, we're going to be doing a lot. I should have brought tissues with me.
No, I would say the same. I mean, you know this, right? Like
Yeah.
there are things that I would only say to you.
Yes, and that's where the trust issue, not trust. That's where that trust component comes from. There are,
Because if
nobody
you
lose each
spill,
other's phones.
I'd probably have to kill you if you spill
Yes.
anything.
If our friendship ends, that's just it. One of us has to like go.
But to your point about trustworthiness, and you also have to be able to rely on that person that they're actually going to do the things that they're going to say that they're going to do.
Yeah.
But then again, I always feel like with partnerships, um it's also dynamic. The person that you go into business with can and will change.
Yes.
Um and it's sometimes it's so now I'm talking about like a marriage, right? People
Well,
change
yes.
during their relationship, but
Again, we're just,
it's the same
you
with
just didn't take the last names. I didn't take your last name. You didn't take mine, but we're practically married. We signed
but
papers.
yes, we sign favors.
We signed
So
papers.
um
Our
but anyway,
initials are
what
literally
I was
joined
pointing
together.
but what I was pointing at is you know uh I think I do think that partnerships are, and I'm not just saying like two people in a partnership in business, but if even if you're like four or five people running a business, people are dynamic. They're not going to be the same every time. It's nice if you grow, if you grow together, whether it's, okay, in this business I cover sales and you cover like the technical aspects of it, and you grow in your skill expertise in the technical side, and I grow in my expertise on the sales side. That's great. But sometimes, sometimes growth is also at different levels and at different speeds,
Yes.
right? And there's a lot to be said about being able to understand that, and then being able to push the other person to actually
Yes.
step up. I think you've done that a lot for me.
And you've done the same for me. Oh
Making
my gosh,
making
we're
sure
crying
that
again.
making no, no, just making sure that I step up even though I don't want to.
Um,
No, what I
no,
mean is, there are certain aspects that I don't. necessarily always do, but that it's just a sign of growth if I do start doing them. And so,
And there
yeah.
were things, and I mean, I do, I mean, like, because I firmly believe some things in its own time. I don't necessarily push. You
Mm.
make suggestions, and you recognize that, you have to be fully on board before you want to you choose to go with it. So you just, but I would say that there's that other important thing of understanding the other half of the decision making process. Na, you don't
Mm.
want to intrude on either the ego, because the ego is still important. The ego
Yeah.
is still important when you're talking about two people making business decisions. I mean, truth be told, when you're trying to win a sales, like a huge sales deal, right? A lot of that is also due to ego. You keep stroking you're not just selling a product. You're trying to convince the people you're making a really good decision by doing this. A lot of
Mm.
that is still ego. That's the reason why a lot of sales is whining and dining and getting the people to like you and getting them to think that it's really just that. The other part, in choosing we're still on the part of like choosing your right co-founder, handling disagreements and conflicts, right? There's still,
Yeah.
you know
Conflict resolution.
understanding, especially again
Mm.
in our
Uh-huh.
situation when really we could push or pull in one direction, and while we've never really had to like bring lawyers to the table, we know that that's the actual possibility when we, if
Yeah.
ever we come, when we arrive at an impasse, uh and say, you want to move in one direction, I want to move to the other. Maybe the one reason we've never needed to do that is because we were always able to resolve conflict and
You know,
disagreement.
um,
The
yeah,
how is the question.
I absolutely agree about this. I think one of the reasons why we actually work is that before we had a business, we actually worked together
We did.
for a few years, and it's not just working together in one company. We work together in the same team. So just by mind you, we worked together, then became friends, and then
And then we became
I don't
friends.
know, it just meshed because he was our social director in that company.
I did the
And
first
anyway,
ever social
what
meetup.
I was, yeah. But anyway, what my point was, because I have had businesses, right? I had partners who um were in the same company as me, and were also my friends. But I guess the difference between that partnership and what we have is because we work together in the same team, we kind of grew that team together as well, right? And mind you, like we were together in that team, and we kind of gone ahead and had a vision for that team. I think that's one of the reasons why we are working here with, like, Virtua is working for us, because we've kind of done like a small,
Oh, we
well,
had
not really,
a we had
really
a
small,
small
but a
proof of
project.
concept that we understand what we're doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah, and
that's an
and I,
idea as
I
well.
already know how you think. And yeah, and because of that, I already know how you think. Like, I know that if I needed like creative problem solving, and if I needed like a lot of ideas, I would go to you, because we've worked together.
Yes.
Ching, ching, ching,
Yes.
ching.
And
Because
you
we've
know
worked
how to
together
push
before.
things. You know how to push things through. You like see things through to completion. We're literally, oh my gosh. I mean, that's a really good example of how to look for complementary strengths and weaknesses, and then, like
Hmm.
I said, trust, mutual respect. Something that maybe we're not between the two of us. Something that you want to give us an advice again for people who are potentially looking. I have a product. I need to. Um, is it really a red flag? Because we're already putting one of those red flags. Yes, our humor is similar. Um, we're already putting to bed one of those red flags, which is like working with friends. We were able to make that happen, but I was gonna
Yeah.
say we do know when to put friendship and business aside. But is it a good
Yeah.
idea to work with family, friends, family? Uh, because everybody says it's a bad idea, but there are family businesses,
Yeah, I know. Um, good question.
but there's
Because I
also
mean,
family
if you
that
ask
have
me,
ended families.
if I want, Yeah, true. But if you ask me if I want to start a business with my siblings, I would like in a heartbeat say yes, because I know, like, we're that close in a sense that I know how they work.
Mm-hmm.
And we
And you
have
have
had
family
small
business.
projects as well. Yeah, we do also have a family business. I think we're at uh family businesses really, like, you know, 50-50, or at least I'm trying to tread lightly because we do have a family business, and you might, hear it in my voice that it's also based on experience, where it's all meshed together, and
And it's kind of
so the
hard to
business
untangle.
problems are also family
It's
problems,
hard to
so you
untangle.
never kind
That's
of,
the reality
yeah.
of it. What
Mm.
happens when you cannot undo blood relationships, but if you do run into that sort of enmity, and let's just face it, some families have literally unraveled because of it's
Yeah.
succession, it's succession scenarios. uh but I think
All I can think about is telenovelas with their ako ang tagapagmana ni ni
ako
papa.
ako ang paborito, ako legal wife. Well, yeah, I mean that's the truth of the matter. It can be a very dicey situation. And I think the more
Yeah.
important thing to consider is realizing that it's a potentially dicey situation. And therefore, if we go into this, we have to avoid said dicey situation. Does that make sense? It's like, and between the
Yeah.
two of us, we literally said we either talk as friends or we talk as business partners, right? And then at some point, yes, it was, really all meshed in together because we had no choice. We meet each other, we go for Starbucks, and then we start talking about, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And then did you hear about, oh my gosh, you know? Yeah, but
Yeah.
when things,
And then the
yeah,
gossip on the
but when
side.
things start getting serious, we really say, like, we want to do this because I respect our friendship to the point that I need to know when to either, say, put ego aside and say, I need to, take a step back because it's not the right time to bring an idea or or a weird, because you know me, I'm always the one with the flights of
I think you
fancy.
know me too well. You know me too well that it's not the
Yes.
time to bring
It's
up
not the time to
a
request for rainbow
conversation or an
unicorns.
idea.
Because you think, what is that,
Yeah.
what does that have to do with our business? But wait, I do have an I haven't requested for rainbow
Exactly.
unicorns, but I do know that sometimes it takes a while to get through. I mean, you've said that. Okay, now I get now I get. But but
Yeah,
that's the thing.
yeah.
I can't be offended because, like I said, I understand by myself that sometimes I make weird suggestions out of the blue, and
Oh, no. What happens with you most of the time is because you're in your head for a lot of times. You have conversations with yourself. When you come to me, it's like a continuation of that conversation, and I'm lost most of
yes.
the time. And I try to,
Was
where are
it
we?
something that
And then you go.
and then I ask you, did I actually bring this up to you or not yet?
I that has happened like a few times.
And what I do
Um,
appreciate
and
about you,
and
and I will say this is like a lot of ego stroking sessions happening right now. But what I do appreciate about you is that you realize when I am in my head, and you take the time to to get other people realizing that this is just a Francis moment, that he will make sense eventually.
yeah.
You because you understand that I'm not just mad, and that I appreciate, because a lot of
No.
people, like I said, tend to not take me very very seriously because I feel like I'm always all over the place. You recognize,
Why?
and I appreciate, and
Oh, yeah. Probably because you already preface, well, you did say you self-diagnose yourself with ADHD. My kid has ADHD, so I kind of understood where the overlap
yeah.
was regarding, like, just a lot of ideas coming in at one time.
Yes.
because that's like one of the things with it. But
Other red flags.
sorry.
So we already brought up family.
uh,
Oh,
just on the family side, I think it could be a red flag if you don't know how the like conflict resolution, right?
yes.
um if you do not decide, or even if they're your sister or they're your brother, of course siblings fight, right? But sometimes siblings fight and then they're just okay
Yes.
afterwards, like you don't even talk about it. And so if you are going to go into business with family, it has to be really talked about, that if it's a problem in business, let's go ahead and have a
Yes.
meeting
You
about
can't
it.
just sweep
No, like,
things under.
no raised
Yeah, you can't just
voices.
sweep things
Yeah.
under the
Yeah,
rug.
because sometimes, I mean, I don't know if that happens with you and your siblings, where but I don't really fight with my siblings anyway. When we're younger,
Yes.
probably, but like we're really, really young. I don't really fight with them now. No, I don't.
Well, maybe do you
Um,
adhere to
I can't even remember, but
the sibling hierarchy? Maybe you don't realize it because you're panganay.
because I'm the
Yeah.
ate, then you should follow
And
me.
I could say
No,
the same.
no, because
I
our
could say the same
second,
for
or
myself.
but the sibling after me has a stronger personality than me.
Yes, that's true.
So it's not the
I experienced
hierarchy.
that. Yeah, but still,
He has a
it's
stronger. She
the
has a stronger
deference.
personality.
It's the deference too. Stronger personality, but I
No,
can
we
only go
don't
up to
have.
here because I don't you don't tread on the. But anyway, I think one of the things that
Anyway,
I was thinking of,
moving on.
apart from the inability to close the conflict resolution, it's being able to
Mm.
really establish the boundaries. It's again the problem of the red flags. Do you know that movie Julia Julia?
I think, is that the one that
Meryl Streep.
who's trying to
They were trying to cook.
cook
They were trying to come up with the
this
cookbook,
famous
right?
person's. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
And
okay.
then they did have that rivalry where they were like, "Oh, we're three people trying to write a book," and then eventually it just became so evident that there were two people doing all the heavy lifting, and one of them was just like, she wasn't cognizant that I have to leave, blah blah, and then one of them eventually just like, "You're not doing the work. You're not doing the work." And it's going to be just the two of us, and then they managed to keep her in, but they really established that you're going to be of lower rung, and I think that's the important thing,
Mm.
that you confront issues as soon as they arise. So whether you're friends, whether you're family, whether you're whether you're even if you're co-founders who said like we don't really know each other but we have complementary skills, sometimes a division of labor uh tends to be a problem because again life happens.
Yeah,
Life happens, like, for me I didn't
yeah,
really mind being married to my work, but then again I cannot ask the same thing from you. You are in a way, but you will forever have kids which will demand your time, which is important, right?
yeah.
I've never held that against you. I make suggestions. They can't sleep, give them Ambien. you know
Yeah,
I've given you so many
no,
suggestions. Have you
yeah, I
ever
think
followed any of them? Red
it's
wine,
very
Valium.
no, like understanding is very underrated. Like no one can actually show up 100% all the
Yes.
time. So it's also important to be, regular updates is really, really important, whether it's an update on the business or an update on life, what's happening
Hmm.
with life, so that you understand why the pacing is different on the other
Yes.
side.
And I think there was a
And you have
point
to be
in
really,
it, with for us too, where we literally had,
mm,
okay, I got this, or you'd say you got this because life is happening, and it's not taken in
yeah,
resentment of the other. You'll be back, bounce back,
no.
and be okay again, and that was
And it's probably because of that, because we know that after this, like I know after whatever you're going through, you'll bounce back, and you know that after everything that I'm going through, I'm not just gonna spiral down and not do anything
true,
after. You know that I'm gonna bounce back and do my work.
true, exactly.
I
Yeah.
think that's
And like I
one
said, that's
thing.
so I think we're just going back to more like ego checking and and establishing clear boundaries. But let's go towards and here's the other thing that you start recognizing when you start putting up your business. Even though you're two people, you can only ever be two people. Eventually, when you start scaling the business, you now have to start replicating yourself. And there's many ways to do that. Like in our case, we decided to build a team and keep majority of the ownership. But a lot of businesses will, and that's probably still, where the key importance of being aligned in decision making. A lot of business will need to infuse funds, or infuse in by way of partnerships, and that's major decisions in the lifespan of their business. Like, how do you deal with that, right? And you realize, like, some people would, no, it just has to be the two of us. And, not everybody would be happy to part with whatever share they have
Some
in order
equity,
to
yeah,
make way
shares, yeah,
for fresh infusion
different
of funds, or
funds.
no, and like I said, it's while I don't want to name names or in businesses, it's just it's so funny that in as many talks that we go through, and we say, oh my gosh, successful business, successful business, successful business, you keep your mind open about these businesses, like, do the where are they now sort of thing, and you try to watch these people, like, oh my gosh, like, and you'll see that a lot of them, syempre, after their first year, they come up to a talk or a convention, you can see, oh my gosh, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. But after a year or two, you can see, like, oh, floundering. uh it's still the nature of business to
Yeah.
that's why you have a 2-3 year ROI, right? Because you can't really expect a business to be sort of like a forever sort of business. uh it either needs to merge, grow, evolve, or exit. And that's the reality. You just have to be aligned on both of them. So if you, I guess, if you're starting to talk about that, same as what we were discussing, at some point, if you haven't discussed what your business is going to look like with an actual exit plan, at least start talking about the exit plan. I'm not saying don't start the business.
Or not even like for some people, because it's not really an exit plan, right? Like um they don't want it acquired, like especially for Filipino businesses, sometimes they don't really think about like
Yeah.
about business like that's most of the time it's like
Yeah,
legacy,
they attempt to make
like
it
a
a
legacy
legacy.
business.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that's again a decision for you and your partners that you have to really
You can't
talk
really
about,
expect, and
right?
the
um
reality of businesses, right? Like, moving away from dynastical businesses. A lot of businesses really
mm,
live through 3 generations, and that's also sort of like rooted in history and studied to death. You know how grandparents put up the business, and then the kids maintain the business, and then the
mm,
grandkids ruin the business. It's not, is it always the plan? I mean, is that always the outcome? Of course not. But has it happened enough to say that this is normally what would happen? Yes. Right. So during the course of business, will some businesses become sustainable for years or decades to come? Of course. But we've lived enough to see some businesses, that used to
mm,
exist. So obviously they don't exist anymore because they haven't been able to keep up with the times. They haven't been able to, to sustain the business. And as you've seen, like, a lot of people, like, I used to have, and let's talk about, like, lower scale. Like, I know I used to have a bake shop business, and then why did it stop? Because I had to move abroad. Those reasons to end the business. Actually, that could have happened to us when I when I move away. Good thing, good
yeah,
thing our business is literally online, so we can still manage our business exactly as
yeah,
is.
even though
Yeah,
we're not on the
and but
same,
that's, like I
yeah,
said,
same
life
country.
life will happen. So what happens if, between two partners, one of them decides to, like, make googly eyes and marry and move to Tuscany or somewhere, then you won't, if your business demands you to
Move
be
to
physically,
London.
I know, if your business demands you to be physically present, then that's automatically a
That's gonna be
decision
hard.
that you now
Yeah.
have to make.
Unless you really come in to an agreement of one person being more physically present in the business and the other taking a step back and doing more of, I don't know, finance or a silent partner. And again, that's an agreement or a change in agreement that you both
Yeah,
have, or
sit down
you
and
or your
agree.
partners
Yeah.
would really need to
And
talk
if you,
about
I
that.
guess if you do that,
Yeah.
put your keep your ego in check. Is my contribution going to be as much as it was before? Do I need to step back and unload some of my shares because this person will now be doing half of my half of the work that I left behind, or will have to compensate for my absence, uh for my absence by taking on more resources, or hiring or new, or bringing in a new
Mm-hmm.
partner. Then maybe take a step back and say, I'm going to divest some of my shares in order to in order to bring more resources, and just keep that's a very reasonable thing to do. Actually, be thankful that your partner is still saying, parang, I cannot do this without you. You still need to be there. Then, instead of saying, then give up your shares. So there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it's very interesting because in several ways we can talk about we could have talked about all of the red flags, but that we chose to move along the lines of how to make it work, because it's nice to be able
Yeah.
to share, do we have a formula for success? Well, so far it's succeeding.
I Do we have a formula?
Yeah.
And I've asked you before, and I've
It was a
chatted
very
with you
late night
about
message that
what's missing in a
I got that. I
partnership.
still have it.
Late night message. Yeah, like why does our partnership work, and why has it been working? I think, and I've been thinking about this because I knew it was gonna come up when we were going to when we
Yeah.
well with this particular podcast episode. I do think that apart from my genuine admiration and love for you, not I don't know. I have a lot of trust about the value that you bring, and how you're pushing me to just keep moving forward. I think, and then the other thing that's also making it work is and this kind of blurs, because we've said there we do have a line between, okay, are we friends now or are we business partners now? But if you're in business, you do know that a huge part of being in business is all is the emotional roller coaster.
Yes.
Not with dealing your business partner, but just dealing with the business itself. It's just an emotional roller coaster. And the reason why this is working for me as someone who, you as my business partner, is I'm able to confide with you on that. And then, sometimes I manage your feelings and sometimes you manage mine.
Thank you for always being there to
It's just
manage
really
my
a give and
feelings.
take.
And I will not let this
Someone has
I
to,
will not let
you
this
know,
pass without me saying, I have just as much, if not more, respect and admiration for your spunk gumption, your almost unending desire to learn and move forward and be what the business needs, and coupled with your general love for books and learning, which I
oh yeah.
may never be able to do, but I try to learn in different ways. But it's true,
Oh yeah.
if this is not convincing you that that partnerships are worth having, it can work, but
Mhm.
is there work involved? Yes. Do you have to put in the work? Absolutely.
Yes.
you know do you always have to, and never take that partnership for granted, not because just because things are working well, that you can, like, introduce other variables or factors in your life, thinking that it's always going to stay this way. The I was gonna say marriage. Your marriage to each other, the business partner, comes before almost anything else. I mean, of course, aside from the
Mm-hmm.
personal aspects, because there's family and all that, but your commitment to the business has to be like as strong. now. So, you know, that we should technically celebrate our anniversary every year. We should recommit. Although we truly do recommit, you know, we do have to talk. We do have we have had those conversations.
Renewal
I
of
think we have had
vows.
those renewal of vows. But I think we do in a way. You know, I will remind you in some of those little conversations that we've had. It's not formal conversations, but I think we've had those little moments when we say,
Mm.
"Do we really want to do this? Do we understand what we're doing here? Are you worried?" Sometimes, you know, we do those little temp checks. You know, are
Yeah.
you okay? Are you worried about how we're moving forward? Are you scared? You know, because you know there have been moments when we have been like genuinely scared about what we're doing. You know, scared about what we're doing. You know, we've I think we've also both felt those moments. You know that we know what we're strong, we know our strengths, what we're good at, but also painfully, uh, you know, also painfully cognizant of what we are not good at. You know, especially when you started playing big
Yeah.
leagues. You know, we call it our big leagues. It's probably just our own definition of big leagues. But you know, when it started going through that point where you know, when we started doing lawyers, when we started dealing with Dole, it was like, oh my god, Dole, oh my god, what are we doing? So yeah, you know, we were there to
Yeah.
hold each other's hand. We were there to understand what the other is missing. We were there to deal with each other's anxieties and then ideas, and like so. Yeah, this was what just one big ego check episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, final tips and advice,
That's
key
what we're doing.
takeaways for you know if you're an aspiring businessman, do you want to take on a co-founder? What should you really try to look at? I think it'd be best to if you want to summarize, do let me know.
In this podcast episode, we did talk about, there's a lot of pros and cons about, getting a partner for your business. For us, it worked. And one of the reasons why it worked is because we've worked together before. We are friends, even though sometimes that's also a red flag. But I guess it's worked for us because we're friends, but we've also worked before. I think was the magic sauce between the two of us. If I was just reviewing our history, but we did talk about family businesses, working with family friends. We talked about excuse me, when you're looking for a co-founder, you're looking for a business partner, find people that are complementary to your skill sets, to your strengths, and even where their strength is your weakness, and vice versa, right? And most importantly, that you have a shared vision of what the company
Yes,
is going
and the
to be,
groundwork thing.
whether it's a moving vision or
It's a, yeah,
yes, the
talking about
groundwork
the
thing.
groundwork. If you don't think, if you're worried that um, that friendship or family may get in the way, put all of that in writing. Like, thou shalt not, put your wife above my needs. It's just- no, I mean it's just fair to do that. You know, like if you think you have I like him, but he has a propensity to play golf so much that it sometimes takes away from the business, then you have to say no. You have to commit to at least minimum 60 hours per week to the business, right? Because as business owners, you do have the you do have the leeway to like work as much or as little as you can. So if you notice that's a red flag to for this person, he can put a lot of hours in one week and then disappear completely the next. Then put that in writing. You say no. You have to put in a minimum 40 hours, and that will satisfy me as your co-founder. Then red flag assumed. Diba? That's really just my understanding of
Yes,
doing that
yes.
groundwork. Like if you're uh if you travel too much, then you can say you can only travel a minimum. You know you can
Your
you can only be
boundary,
gone a
yeah.
minimum maximum 3 months out of the year. And if the other co-founder agrees, then yes, that satisfies me. Because again, if nothing stops you from doing that, and you didn't check that right away, and then your co-founder who likes to is a jet setter, uh, travels 9 months out of the year, then then builds that
I think
resentment
it's all
factor
about
again.
just if you're gonna have a business partner, I think it just boils down to
Communication,
communication.
communication, yeah.
um yeah, communication, just be very open, and then the understanding, which we also talked about. Relationships, whether it's business excuse me, a business relationship, everyone is just dynamic. They will change over the course of the entire business, whether it's because of your experience just by running the business or other life life stuff. People will change, but you do have to have that understanding, and then that open communication that this is happening to me, and then the other should be able to understand. Excuse me, to understand. And then of course the alignment, and that's where what you're saying about being a jet setter, just be sure that the other person knows that you're not just lacking off. I've communicated that this is how I'm going to work in this business. And whether the other person pushes back or agrees or is okay with it, then
Yeah.
at least
And
you
when that
agreed
magic
on
signature
something.
actually does happen,
Yeah.
then that
Mhm.
means we all agreed. That's your biggest assignment, really. Putting together and trying to understand
Yeah.
exactly who you'll be working with, and that's unfortunately the failure that a lot of businesses happen. It's just you get hyped
Mm.
up. Oh my God, we're gonna be rich. And that's why the term, oh, you're Mark Zuckerberging me, and because it just happened. But yes, I am. I think that's all that we really wanted to discuss today. You think? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
And
one episode that I thought maybe is also as enlightening for ours as I hope has been enlightening for you guys. If you're again an aspiring businessman, all kudos to you. You all power. You have our prayers. You have our strengths. If you want to send us an email, of course, please do. We love hearing your comments and suggestions. If you want to, just set a time to or put your comments over to this podcast. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our episode. This has been Outsourcing and More. My name is Penny. No, my name is not Penny.
no, you're just
Your name
president.
is Penny. Oh my
Again, we're
gosh, we
just
are the
one
same
person.
person.
This is just proof that we're one person. But before we forget, please do hit the subscribe button. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Buzzsprout, and YouTube. And then, yeah, if you have any comments or suggestions, please do email us. Our email is oam at virtualsolutions.os.com.
os.com. Yeah, there you go. And this
OAM
has been
at
another
Virtual
episode of
Solutions.
Outsourcing and More. My name is Francis.
And my name is Penny. Thank
We
you
will see
so
you
much
on the
and
next
see you.
episode.
Okay, bye
One day.
bye.
Subscribe to our podcast.
We also have a YouTube channel where you can see the faces behind the voices.
You can also find Virtual Solutions on Facebook and LinkedIn.
And if you've got a topic you've been wanting to learn about, let us know by sending us an email at
OAM at virtualsolutionsos.com. Again, it's OAM at virtualsolutionsos.com.
see you in the next episode.
Goodbye.
Bye.